Most of us would rather be hired or promoted not because of how we look, but because of our skills and abilities. But like it or not, appearance is important. How you look will play a role in whether you'll be offered a job, or, if you're already working, if you'll move up the ladder. In this program, we're going to discuss how the clothes you wear play a role in the hiring process and in your advancement once you get the job. Employers hire and promote people they believe best match the needs of their organization. Your appearance can be just as important as your skills and qualifications. If you are employed, you represent the organization you work for. If you're applying for a position, you need to express the look and feel of that particular organization. The more professional you look, the better others perceive you and the organization for which you work. You've probably heard the expression, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. It's true. First impressions play an important role in the hiring process.
Well, what I find, and what the research supports, is that it takes just a matter of seconds in an interview, or really any initial contact with a person, to form an impression. If that first impression is a negative one, particularly in an interview, then what happens after that probably isn't going to matter. The way that people do that generally is initially dress and grooming is the most important thing, and then of course what you say and how you say it.
I can't tell you the number of times I've seen a wild outfit in an interview. My advice would be to go conservative. It's not the time to take a fashion risk.
One thing that's really important for people to remember, especially about the initial interview process, you always want to try to dress at least a notch above what you think the dress code is going to be on a daily basis. If you're going in to interview for a light industrial warehousing position, khakis, a shirt and tie would be fine. You don't necessarily need to wear a suit. If in doubt, overdress.
When you go to an interview, you want to make sure you're clean and neat. You want to make sure that your hose have no runs. The most important things are the details.
We would expect that somebody who is coming to interview for a manufacturing position, not necessarily to come in a suit and tie, but we would want them to look neat and clean. A person that's interviewing for a professional position, an office position, we would expect them to be dressed appropriately.
A lot of people would come in and pretty much would go, again, you know, to the extreme of the color of the suit, finding a suit that's like a 4-button style. Well, I don't think it's appropriate for a job interview. Pretty much you want to go with a traditional double-breasted or single-breasted suit.
Well, I think dressing for an interview, the key thing there is, again, to make sure that you're conservative in your dress and you're not too flamboyant, because you want to come in with confidence, and the first impression is made in the first few seconds of your interview. So a properly fitted suit, one that the color is right for you, and again, navy blue is probably your best color, perhaps a blue-gray.
When it comes to interviews, keep jewelry simple. If it makes noise, leave it at home. You do not want to do anything that distracts the interviewer.
The way your shoes are shined is very important. I mean, you can have a really nice looking suit on and have a pair of shoes that just are terrible. They look like they've been polished with a candy bar. Okay, that just kind of blows the whole thing. So I think the key thing is when you're interviewing is that you're clean and you're neat and you're well groomed and you have color on that really does represent you, and also it's a conservative color rather than a flamboyant color.
You want your wardrobe to reflect confidence. You want to use neutral colors like navy blue, blue, grays.
Well, I'd say navy blue or a blue-gray is probably your best color. If you do something in a darker gray tone, if your coloring is such like you have real dark hair, perhaps you have brown eyes or dark-colored skin tones, then your darker color would be good as well. But I'd say with your navy blues and your blue-grays are probably your best color, your safest color.
Studies indicate the first 10 seconds of the job interview can determine whether or not you'll be offered a job. Although nothing about your skills and abilities is said, your appearance dictates the way your interview will go. If you look the part, and employers hire people who do, the interview may go well. If you don't, you may as well go home.
What I always suggest to people Call a company, speak to the receptionist before your interview. Ask her, hey, what's your culture like? You know, how do people normally dress? How should I come to the interview? Most receptionists are very open and willing to help people out in that situation.
When going to an interview, dress to impress. If you don't know exactly what kind of clothes to wear, visit the organization before interviewing to see how others dress. If this isn't possible, go to the library and look up the occupation and career reference books. Or you might access the internet for even more ideas. Let's go over some of the basics. We can begin by putting jobs into different clothing categories. Blue collar, white collar, and white and blue collar. Let's start with blue collar.
In a plant like this, where there's a lot of dirt from ink and dust from powder on the presses and stuff, I think jeans is fine. And you know, a lot of people wear jeans and flannel shirts or T-shirts and that kind of stuff. And I figure in this kind of environment that's okay.
Some work environments have suggested ways of dressing. Not necessarily uniform, but it could be that too. But there are many ways that you can mess that look up by not being as neat as you might. Details are important, so how you go about doing things. If your clothing is a little bit disorganized, a little bit sloppy, a little dirtier than it needs to be, it suggests to me, and I think most other people who would see someone, that your work is probably being done in the same way.
You represent your organization to others. If you look good, you create a good impression. White-collar occupations are usually made up of sales, office, professional, and managerial positions. When you work in a white-collar job, you'll be expected to provide your own clothing, and you'll be expected to look professional at all times. This means you'll have to do some homework to determine clothing styles that fit your particular situation.
And I can wear blacks, browns, blues, but if I tend to put on orange and gold shades, they clash with my makeup. So it's really important to select the proper wardrobe. And if a person doesn't really know what colors they should have, they can go to the fabric shop and just hold color swatches up against them with a mirror and see which tones they look better with them.
When it comes to clothing, men are now facing interesting challenges regarding what qualifies as business attire.
One of the things that it's easy to do is on a daily basis to dress down a little too much. And many jobs are less formal now. Even in office occupations, you'll see people wearing blue jeans and things. I think in general it's not a good idea. I think the wise thing to do is to think in terms of what level do I want to move to? How do I want to be perceived by people outside the organization as well as people inside? You have customers, whether you're working on a car or doing office work. How would I like to see someone else in that kind of a role? And that's how you should be dressing. So in a general way, even if jeans are acceptable on the job, you ought to look at perhaps wearing chinos or something perhaps a little dressier than what you could get by with. Again, what we're looking for is ways to be perceived as someone within the organization who can move up, and how you are perceived by others within the organization and people outside of that has something to do with that. So that's why I think in general it's best to dress a little more carefully than you might be able to get by with on a daily basis.
White blue-collar occupations can require a wide variety of clothes. For example, someone who's a manager may have the occasion to wear a business suit, while other times they may wear a uniform or some other type of blue-collar style of clothing. People in blue-white collar jobs often find that keeping an extra outfit on hand at work is a good idea. That way you can be sure to be dressed appropriately, no matter what the day may bring.
The people that go in the office to help do some work, and then the people in the office when we're busy in the shop, I have some of them come out and help out in the plant too, so that and most all the employees are cross-trained to be able to do more than one job. These people up here work up here as this is their full-time job, but when we're caught up upstairs, they'll go down and help in the bindery or help on the presses or help, and vice versa. There's people that come upstairs and help work up here.
So whether we're talking about a mechanic or an office worker or a manager, how they dress and groom and their work environment, or their environment around them also suggests to others something about their work. And so I think it's important that you pay attention to how you look, whether it's a uniform or prescribed or however you're expected to dress. Pay attention. It makes a difference.
It's important to keep your work clothes clean. If you wear a uniform, the cleaning might be handled by your employer. but no matter who does it, it's ultimately up to you to make sure that your work clothes are cleaned properly and frequently.
Our uniforms are worn for a purpose. They are worn as a statement to our customers and anybody who would come into our plant. We want them to see a good representation of our products and our company. So we expect people to keep them laundered and pressed and looking nice.
You need to let your clothes air out. You need to hang them up. Don't over dry clean them. Dry cleaning is really hard on clothes. My suggestion is if they're wrinkled and they're not soiled, then you can steam them out and get the wrinkles out of them and hang them up overnight and let them air out, and then the wrinkles will fall out, especially if it's good quality clothing.
If you supply the clothes, keeping them clean is only part of your responsibility. You must also find out which styles are appropriate.
I watch videos on suggesting how people should dress for interviews, and I've seen some that suggest if you spend less than $600 on your outfit, your interview outfit, that you're doing yourself an injustice. In fact, if you look at the consumer reviews, you'll find that some very inexpensive sources of clothing do just fine, come out with good ratings. So you can go into major department stores and buy clothes for far less money than that and still look very good. And the other thing is, if your budget is very tight, you can go to places like thrift stores. What happens is people will outgrow their clothes, they'll gain weight, they'll lose weight, they'll get tired of a style, but certain classic styles are really not going to go out of date very often. You can go to a thrift store and pick up a clothing outfit that may have cost hundreds of dollars, and you may get it for $10 and $15. So I think there are many ways that you can dress well for an interview and for work on a daily basis that doesn't really have to cost you as much as you might think.
In many cases, you can find tough, rugged work clothes at the local department store or even a second-hand shop. If you're unsure, ask your supervisor for advice.
The nicest thing about consignment shopping is, one, you're not getting it at retail prices. You're normally getting it at about a third to a fourth of what retail normally is. So you're not going to be spending the kind of out-of-pocket that you normally would with retail stores. There's also just as much variety, if not more, in resale shops because you have so many different types of women. I have over 2,500 consigners, so you're talking numerous women and their styles, and just because I might not wear it doesn't mean that somebody else might not, that type of thing. So you're going to get all, I have an age group in here from 15 to 85.
The point of all this is to make sure you and your clothes are neat and presentable, no matter what your occupation. Loading a truck, building a house, or CEO of a large corporation. It's a reflection of you and the organization you work for. For all situations, there are certain types of clothing fabrics that work better than others. The type of job you have, climate, and other factors should play roles in determining which fabrics are best for you.
What I would suggest to someone who's trying to develop a working wardrobe, again, is keep it simple. Get basics that you can mix and match so that you don't necessarily have to go out and spend $500, $600 on one outfit. You know, if it's a business casual environment, a couple of pairs of khaki pants, black pants, a couple of white shirts, maybe a few casual ties that you can mix and match and coordinate so that you're not spending your first initial paychecks on your wardrobe. That's what I would suggest. If it's a female, again, along the same lines, maybe a couple of casual skirts. If it is a casual environment where you can wear pants, again, I would get a couple of pairs of khakis, a couple of solid colored shirts that you can mix and match so that, hey, people aren't going to be paying that close attention. They're not going to know. Didn't you just wear that 3 days ago? No, they're not going to know that, especially if you can coordinate and mix and match a few basic pieces of clothing.
Well, yeah, there's different weights of clothing and there's different textures of clothing, and obviously in the winter area, the winter climates like Minnesota or Michigan, or the clothing's going to be a little heavier and a little loftier, and it does give the appearance of winter clothing. So you do not want to wear that in the spring and the summer. And the same with a summer suit that might be a tan or a light olive. That is a spring and summer fabric and color, and that should not be worn in the wintertime. So try and wear your clothes that are fitted for the season that you're in. Now there are some fabrics that are year-round, and those fabrics are great, but again, the color is going to make a difference. You could have a year-round fabric, but it could be a light color, and that would be not appropriate for the winter time of the year.
Definitely, you have to stay with the basics first when you're starting a wardrobe. You want to go with the navy, black, beige and khakis, things like that. You want to go with the basics, and that way you can crisscross your wardrobe on, again, versatility on your wardrobe.
The best advice? Shop around. Ask the advice of friends, relatives, and people who work in clothing stores. Check with others in similar occupations. Find out which fabrics, styles, and colors are the most popular with them. And don't forget to consider where you live. Different parts of the country dress with different levels of formality.
I think the best way to learn about how to dress and groom for different situations, work, interview, and others, is really to pay attention to how you react to other people when you see them. If you walk up to a bank situation, you look at the teller, and there's something that you see as particularly appropriate or inappropriate, well, that's really telling you the way that you should behave yourself in similar situations, in this case, customer contact situations. So watch when you go get your car repaired, how you react to the environment that you see. Is it clean, is it messy, and how do you react to that? That feedback and how we react ourselves to the different situations, the business and social situations we find ourselves in, really tell us a lot about how we should behave in dressing and grooming ourselves in many different situations.
We've covered the basics of clothing and how to dress on the job. You should have some idea of what you need to do in order to make a good impression. Use common sense. If you don't know about a style or whether or not something matches, ask someone. How you look greatly affects your chances of getting a job and getting ahead. You want to look the best you can at all times.
I guess the one that stands out the most, a gentleman came in with a lime green sport coat. He had on these lime green, almost neon colored pants, and he had a gray tie with, again, this lime green color that flowed through it. I tell you what, I can't remember his name, but all I can do is I can remember hearing that outfit because it was so loud that that's all I could think about when I was talking to him. I had to make sure that I didn't smile because it was hard for me to take him seriously. No matter what he said, all I thought about was, where did he get that outfit? And why did he wear that to a job interview?